الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Center at New York University podcast, coming to you straight from the heart of New York City. We're building an amazing Muslim community here at ICNYU where everyone is welcomed and respected no matter where you're from or where you're at. This is the place to be. So open your ears and your heart and come along with us on another life-changing journey. Bismillah.
Okay, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So if you want to pull up the text, if you haven't already, it's called the Book of Assistance by Imam al-Haddad, and you can find a PDF of it pretty easily online. We're on the second chapter that's on intention, what you call niyyah in Arabic. And a quick recap for those who haven't been here for the last few weeks. This is a text that essentially provides a roadmap for one's own spiritual journey, individualized in the sense that you essentially are now able to implement back the practical elements, the abstract elements in a subjective way, but with the recognition that communally we're still able to see how we can lean on each other and support one another in our own respective journeys towards the divine. And the idea with this text is that it presents very easily digestible chapters. Each chapter is about a page to 3 pages in length. There might be one in the middle that's a little longer than that. But essentially, you are able to pull from these concise chapters steps that are literal steps in this journey. When Imam al-Haddad sets in the first chapter, which we looked at over a few weeks, is a goal or a destination, kind of what you're working towards, which he identifies as yaqeen or certitude, right? A very kind of resolved, concrete sense of faith, conviction. And then the second chapter he sets as intention, which essentially is the idea that you know why you're doing what you're going to do, ideally prior to you doing it, but if not prior to, at some point you get to a place where you can affirm and allow for yourself to bring consciousness to the act that is coming in front of you. Islam as a religion doesn't separate spirituality, ethics, and religion into kind of siloed buckets, but it sees it all synergized together. And so for the duration of this text, you're going to find things that have external elements, inward elements, things that you can do, quote unquote, but also things that you can believe in, things that you can embody, and things that you essentially would allow for yourself in a inward state of not just limited to material existence, but otherworldly existence to get ready for. Does this make sense so far? And the whole idea is to be in a place that says we experience the world a little different. We see it differently. There's going to be people right now who are going to walk outside and they will be Muslim. And they will see every single person dressed in a costume head to toe and will utilize the opportunity to elevate themselves by denigrating somebody else. Speaking poorly and ill of every single person. Look at these people and what they engage in. The Prophet ﷺ found what was inherently beautiful in everyone around him. He saw what was there that was of light and luminosity. Arrogance is not just overt, but it's subtle. May Allah protect us from it. But how you see somebody does not just tell you about them. How you see someone tells you a lot about yourself. It doesn't mean that you walk on the street and every single person that's there suddenly is your best friend and you're not mindful of situations. But you think about it through the prism of what reality actually is and how a vision of the heart can allow for you to still have love, compassion, mercy, understanding for people who live life very differently from you. Does that make sense? Does it? Because the idea isn't to get to a place of separation that says, here's me and here's you, in a way that creates hierarchy that you don't know what any of these people are doing in the late hours of the night. You don't know how it is that they might be spending their daytime hours. We don't know what their private, secret lives are like. The notion is to not cast judgment in a sense that is going to be damaging back to your own inward state. Does that make sense? And I know you all are not people like that, mashallah, but you want to just think about it and what that means and how it becomes telling back to just our own inward states, right? Yeah? And so here now we're in this second chapter on intention. We've looked at the first few paragraphs, and for those who it's your first time, what we do is just read through it sentence by sentence and try to extrapolate meaning. We talk to each other in smaller groups. We discuss back as a larger group and just get through the chapters as we can. This chapter on intention is going to be very important. And we've already talked about this in terms of core beliefs, in terms of habit formation. We've talked about it in a lot of different ways in terms of herd mentality, why it is that we do what we do, and how is it that we can exert more wakefulness, awareness, consciousness in what it is that we have going on in our day-to-day actions. We're not just running on default settings, going kind of in a mode where the presence of our heart and the presence of our mind is not there. I'll give you another example where we talked about the heart last week, and we said the place of intentions in the heart, where it can be captivated by so many other things. Right? There's a social experiment that some of you have heard me talk about before that takes place with a man by the name of Joshua Bell. Joshua Bell gets placed onto a DC Metro subway platform during rush hour. And during rush hour, he is playing a violin with a violin case open, similar to every person that you see as a street performer or a subway platform performer here in New York City. And Joshua Bell says that during rush hour, there's hundreds of people that just walk by him. Nobody pays him any attention. He says there's an elderly man that stops for a few moments and stares. His gaze is fixated, and then he goes on his way. And Joshua Bell says that when children come in front of him, they just stop. And they're stuck, and they can't do anything other than look at this man. And the adults that are with him, they have to literally pull them away. And Joshua Bell says, I can see these children looking at me over their shoulders until they can't see me anymore. In the 2 or 3 hours that he's there during rush hour, he makes about $10 to $20 at most. And what makes this crazy is that this man, Joshua Bell, is considered to be one of the foremost practitioners of the violin in the world. Then in the days surrounding this social experiment, he is selling out concert hall after concert hall where the tickets start at hundreds of dollars. The violin that he's playing that day itself is valued at $2 million. And all of these people have the opportunity to take in this moment that not only they will experience, but they'll likely tell their kids about or their kids' kids about. And each one of them is passing it by because their hearts are getting pulled by something else. There's something that is distracting them. There's something that is keeping consciousness from being present. And they can't take from this moment of beauty that is literally for them to take. Do you get what I'm saying? And you're like, no, Khalid, music is haram. You shouldn't be looking at the violin anyway. But understand it conceptually and then apply it back to you. You are not just a body that is walking as a physical being in this world. You do have a heart. You have a qalb. You do have an intellect, the aql. You do have a soul, a spirit that makes you unique amongst creation, the ruh. You have sheer will and determination, irada. All of these things exist within you. in addition to being in a place where you then have a physical aspect, the jasad, the badan. But it's not the majority of you, and just because it's most tangible doesn't mean that that should define and dictate. What gets muted quite heavily is the ability to now think inwardly when the outward is the primary focus. You want to lean it right here?
That's good.
Man, that was great. Good job, mashallah.
Resourceful.
All right. So this thing of intention becomes important. What I had asked some of you to do last week leading into this week was just to be in a place where you start to inventory what's going on in your heart and to allow for yourself to have an awareness, a consciousness of it. Did anybody actually do that? You don't have to tell us what you found in there. I'm sure it was really great. Or if you haven't, what makes that difficult to do? What makes it difficult at times to start to look inward in that way and try to then affirm actual conscious intention? Does that question make sense? So maybe you could turn to the person sitting next to you and we can discuss that for a bit, and then we'll come back and then we'll go back to the text. So what makes it hard to affirm or stay consistent in this kind of consciousness or wakefulness? And then we'll come back and we'll discuss. Great. Thanks, man.
We don't understand the question.
Huh?
We don't understand the question.
Why is it hard to act consciously as opposed to just on default settings? Yeah. Or is it hard? It might not be. Yeah. No, no problem. Do people understand the question? The frame? Yeah? Kinda? No? Why are you pretending like you understand it if you don't understand what I'm saying? Let's see what people say when they come back. I said, what makes it difficult to stay consistent with your intentions or to be kind of conscious and wakeful? Yeah. You might think maybe we might do next time, which is my fault. I don't think we have to change anything now, but I think with the camera apparatus growing, maybe I should sit in a chair. That might be easily so it's not kind of in the way. Do you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? Right now, anybody who's sitting right here, this is in their field of view. But if I was in a chair, I'd be seated a little bit higher. But I don't know. Let's see what goes. No. I'm saying maybe. No, it's okay. Yeah. Okay. Shh. So let's come back. What do you talk about? What gets in the way or what makes it difficult? Who won? Huh?
The pace of life.
The pace of life? What does that mean?
Life is much faster now than before.
Then before what? How old are you?
We were discussing how in our jobs, in our work, in our studies, there's a lot of deadlines, a lot of expectations, there's capitalist, pace of productivity, where you feel you're constantly having to catch up and not really actually taking the time to do what you're doing.
Okay, so life gets busy. Yeah? So it's easier, right? Like if we take it to its end, it's easier to sometimes not think about why you're doing what you're doing. You just run on autopilot. Easier doesn't always mean better, you know? But it's just easier to just not be present. What's the problem with that, if you do that?
I mean, eventually it catches up to you.
Huh?
Eventually it catches up to you, and then you're like, then I mean, either you do it consistently or regularly, or it'll catch up to you, and then that'll be much harder because then it'll force you to.
What does it look like when something catches up to you?
It's like you lose the meaning of life. Like you start questioning of your existence, and you be like, "What am I doing here? Why am I here?" And all of these like, just I guess disturbing questions start pop up in your head over time because you're so burned out with, you know, dunya. You know, we were just talking about that and. Like the one thing that I've learned over time by like watching and reading different Islamic sources is like tawakkul in this case is such a big thing. Like I was like I'm a college student, of course, like I have a lot of deadlines and exams and I don't get perfect grades most of the time and STEM major, but so like I learned this thing tawakkul and it's just like I have never been more peaceful in my life.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah, may Allah increase you in your peace. When Imam al-Haddad starts this text, the destination that he has in chapter 1 is yaqeen, right? The destination is not perfection. Is it? It's a stupid pursuit. Nobody's going to ever be perfect. Doesn't mean you don't try, but if you're in a space where there's reasons, right? Things are busier, things are moving at a quicker pace. You still got all the things within you, you're carrying it within you. So you're using the other parts that make you you. You didn't stop using your feet all of a sudden because life got too fast. You didn't stop using your hands. You still utilize your mind to process things. You're still thinking right now. The idea is to reclaim what you think about and how you think about those things. And so this thing of intention becomes really important. Because when you get to this place where things catch up, so to speak, it's usually not in a moment of relaxation, but it's in a moment of, as was said, deep exhaustion or frustration. Everything just feels like it's falling apart. And then in that moment where my emotional self cannot fully be anything other than emotive. And it's not that rationale is not there, but the emotions now overwhelm perspective. I ask myself this question of where am I going? Why am I doing? But it's rhetorical in the sense that I just feel pain at this point. I just don't want to go and do anything more and anything further. There is nobody busier than the Messenger of God, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was a father, he was a spouse, he was a leader in every sense of the word, had to deal with everything and anything that was coming to him, but still made time to somehow ask a young boy whose pet bird died if he's doing okay, still made time to play games with his wife, to joke around with his friends. The idea of being able to understand intentional existence necessitates also understanding as an aspiration, it's actually not that hard to do it. And when you think about all the things that get in the way, they're not necessarily other than what they're intending to do, which is to get you to just focus on your body as opposed to focus on your mind and your heart. To look at yourself and not for yourself. What does it take to just, in an instance, be in a place where you take a breath? Have you ever seen somebody who does the same thing 40, 50 times in a row, and they're trying to figure out a way to make it work? A key doesn't go in the lock, I'm just sticking this key in the lock. I'm trying to make it work. I'm trying to do the same thing again and again and again in the way that it doesn't. Every time I do it, I'm more frustrated, more frustrated, more frustrated. It's like if I tried to pick up a mattress and push it through a door that's just not meant to. And I'm pushing and I'm pushing and I'm pushing. And then I get upset and I get angry and I start kicking and punching it. And then somebody comes and says, "Hey man, are you okay?" And then all they do is take a step back and turn the mattress the other way, and then it goes through the door. That's essentially what it is. And you can't tell me that you haven't had a moment where you're that first person, where you're just banging your head against the wall again and again, wondering why it's not changing. It didn't change the first 30 times you tried it that way. Why would it work on 31? What's going to change? The only thing that's happening is you bang your head against the wall again and again, and it's going to give you a headache, and then you're going to fall, and you're going to feel like there's no point to this. And then if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing in the first place, it's going to make it that much more of a devastating experience. Do you know what I mean? So you sit down in a matter of seconds, and then you just think about, what are the things that I can do without thinking about them? Or when I've gotten into an issue with somebody, an argument, a fight, a quarrel, where words get nasty, tone gets disrespectful, there's not real mindfulness in the situation where I can say, "Sorry, I wasn't thinking." What would it have taken to simply just think in that moment? And you have to understand that it actually doesn't take a lot, because you are thinking constantly. So the challenge isn't about affirming the attention or the ability to build the intention. You got to make sure that it's important enough to you that you actually just take a few seconds to breathe sometimes, and to rest, and to let yourself bring to the present consciousness, awareness, mindfulness. Does that make sense? And you're going to have all kinds of people that tell you things, not because they're just rehashing, but this hadith that we looked at, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that actions are by their intentions. It said that this hadith essentially formulates half of what this religion is about, because it's pretty much what everything is. You got to know why you're doing what you're doing fundamentally. And if shaitan can get you to mute what essentially makes you human, and get you to live like an animal, and get you to a place where it's not just animalistic in the sense of, I am just eating and drinking and engaged in physical intimacy, but like an animal that says, somebody else controls my decisions. You are not the horse that is being compelled with somebody else riding it, and it's got reins in somebody else's hands. You are not the donkey that is a beast of burden, that because somebody else is dictating, you're going to have bags and bags of things on top of your back. You are insan. You are from the best of what was created. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We made humanity in the most beautiful of forms. You don't want to think about animalistic in the sense that is the most simplistic form, but you were made to be free. And that liberation comes from a yield now of consciousness and wakefulness and awareness. So that when you can sit down on the street, you let everybody else just be themselves. I don't need to give a rise to my ego by saying that, look at that fool that's walking around and this and that. Do you get what I'm saying? As your brother who loves you, you have to understand, it does not take a lot of time. And even if it did, which it doesn't, your heart is precious enough that you have to take time for it. And the gifts that you are endowed with will only be enhanced further if you bring now your organs of cognition to how it is that you choose your choices. Do you see what I mean? Both in the affirming of doing things that are good, but also in moving away from things that are not good. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and you've seen them, most of you, my kids running around here. I don't want to be in a place where it's not my state of wakefulness that determines as to how I engage my child. And likely many of you know of adults who their anger overwhelms them. And then they do things to children that no child should ever have to be forced to endure, right? And may Allah make us those who honor the rights of all of His creation, including those that are younger than us as well as those that are elder than us. And then those parents don't ever say, sorry, I wasn't thinking when I said this to you. But then it sticks, and it builds these core beliefs that we talked about in the previous weeks. Does this make sense? So the things that get in the way, they're quite often not the things that we actually anticipate. And the reinvention of what it means now to be submissive to something, you got to think about it. You got deadlines, everybody's got deadlines. It takes 5 seconds to breathe. That's all you got to do. It takes a few minutes to just sit and let it come out, whatever is there. Do you get what I mean? Let's go to the text, and if we can look at so the paragraph that starts, it is a condition of the sincere intention that behavior does not belie it. Can somebody read that for us? Yeah, go ahead, Omar.
So it is a condition of that one?
Yeah, can you read loud?
Yes. It is a condition of the sincere intention that behavior does not belie it. For instance, a man who seeks knowledge, claiming that his intention is to practice and teach it, will be proved insincere in his intention if, when he becomes able to, he does not do so. For a man who pursues the world and claims that he is doing so only that he may be independent of other people and be able to give charity to the needy and help his relatives, will be proved ineffectual in his intention should he not do so when able.
Okay, what is this paragraph talking about? Anybody?
Sometimes we use sort of philanthropy and this idea of doing great things for other people as if that's our actual intention, but it's not. We're actually intending something other than that. We're intending some sort of self-aggrandization or something related to our nefs, and eventually in the pursuit of this materialism that we say is for the sake of other people will be proven. Our true intentions will come out eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? Somebody says, how do I wrestle and struggle with my intention? Well, one of the ways you can tell and assess the intention is the action that goes along with the intention that you've expressed. And this is why intention is in the heart and not on the tongue. Because if you say that I am working this many hours so that I can take care of my parents when they're older, and then your parents get older and you just stick them someplace else, not anything else. The world is not judging you. Nobody's judging you. You can tell if your act is rooted in the intent if you actually do what you said you would do through the intention. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And you could say, well, is that something that really gets in the way for people? But quite often, yes, it does. Especially if we look at the demographic that we're in right now. Statistically, this is not about aspirations or about dreams, right? It's not about thinking about it in that way. Nor is it about thinking about kind of promises or oaths that we take to the divine, that, Ya Allah, if you give me this, I will do this for you. But we're talking simply about a means through which I can hold myself accountable, engage on this spiritual trajectory that I'm on, if I'm actually doing what it is that I said I was going to do. Do you get what I mean? But a lot of what we need to understand ourselves is with ourselves. Right? In Surah Al-Adiyat, you have a verse that's sandwiched between two verses that says, وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ, that you are essentially a proof about it. You're a witness.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're inspired by the work that we're doing at the IC and want to help keep it going, subscribe to our podcasts, follow us on social media, donate to help support us at ICNYU.org, and most importantly, keep us in your continued du'as. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.